Hello, everyone. This is our April episode, and it's dedicated to Autism Awareness Month. I've been posting different slides and videos and images on my Facebook page. If you haven't seen any of them, please go back to my Facebook page and look at all of the information that I've been researching about what autism is, because I thought I had enough information, but actually, after been reading and digging into this for the past whole month, I realized that I don't know anything. And this is just the surface of what I've been learning. So I've been like reading a lot into what autism is, how it affects students, how colleagues and adults also struggle with it, how managers can navigate with or approach people effectively and appropriately. So those are some researchers I've been doing on my end, and I have a few Facebook posts on my Facebook page. Please go back to them and go back to them anytime when you are available. Today, we'll explore what autism is, its effects on individuals, families, colleagues, ways to promote understanding and acceptance. So, first of all, it is extremely important to understand what autism, or another word for it is autism spectrum disorder. But we might be using the word ASD quite often. So if you do get lost, remember it's just a short abbreviation for autism spectrum disorder. Now, ASD is a neurological difference that affects communication, social interaction, and personal behavior. Some of the times, if you are dealing with a little young child, they might not be even know they don't even know why they have these certain behaviors and characteristics. So our job as adults and educators is to jump in, is to lean in and understand exactly what their needs are, and create an inclusive environment. So as educators, there are a few tips on how to create an inclusive environment. We'll dive deeper into that in our episode. Um, Now, joining me today is our guest speaker, Kaye Tolentino. Thank you, Kaye Tolentino, for accepting my invitation and coming back on our show the second time. We had a great time last time. Last time she talked about dyslexia. Now, for the people who might be wondering if there are differences, there are some overlaps between these two. And Kaye is going to share her insight on this topic. She has way more knowledge than I do. There will be hopefully, maybe personal stories of how you have experience with colleagues or friends or niece and nephew with autism, and how can we support our loved ones, our students, our family members who are struggling with autism spectrum disorder. And thank you, Kaye, for accepting. And at first, let's have a short chat. How have you been?
Hi, Monica. Thanks for having me again here. It's a pleasure to share things that I figured out in my journey as a neurodivergent. And thank you for your lovely introduction. I really look forward to this and get to know, from an educator perspective, your experiences at the same time, so we can learn from each other.
No, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. I hope you are, apart from the episode or like on a personal level, I hope you are having a wonderful day and wonderful month. How is your work going along? And by the way, just on a side note, she is an author of an amazing book called What Mario Thinks. So if you want more details, please send us a message. And we also have we might have a whole episode just about her book. So if you want that episode, let us know. Send us a message. And if you want her previous episode on dyslexia, it's already on our YouTube channel. And our YouTube channel is called BYKE Academy. Please subscribe and get notified for any new episodes just like these. Now let's dive in. So we've talked about what autism is, right? So first, let's talk about how can we create an inclusive environment for autistic individuals and foster their acceptance. We want to accept who they are. I think it's like a struggle for maybe managers or teachers. They would like to try to change students or change people, mold them in a specific box what the societal pressures are like societally. I don't know if that's even a word, but socially maybe there's a certain box that people are supposed to go into, especially if you go into a corporate job. It's so rigorous, it's so rigid that you have to think inside the box. And so first of all, my question is like, how can we create an inclusive environment?
That is really a good entry point in this one, in discussing this, because accepting it as an individual is something that needs to be worked on by the person who has symptoms. On the other hand, for them to be able to accept it and be more, should I say, vocal about it in terms of expressing how they feel, what's happening at the back of their head, because basically this is like a black box for most people. We need to actually be aware that there are people who will be struggling, like, now I know, what do I need to do? Something to that effect. Well, given that perspective, one of the things that I find quite helpful is the ability to have an open communication between the manager or the teacher and the student or whoever it is that they are dealing with certain condition. Because sometimes, especially this is something that I noticed, and based on the studies that I've seen from Autism Foundation, international societies and stuff, they were saying that for women, it's quite challenging to detect it in the beginning, at the earlier stage, because the symptoms are very subtle. Okay? The symptoms are very subtle in a way that, oh, hang on. Ah, okay, probably she's being shy or being introverted. But as a matter of fact, she's actually autistic, but wasn't able to articulate it properly. Reason being is just a quick background. I'm so sorry, I really deviated a little bit. But the reason behind that is because old studies previously includes men specifically, and the symptoms with men are more evident compared to a girl or to women. So I think having an open communication where they will express their challenges openly, but also at the same time work with them so that they can understand, okay, this is your condition, this is your challenge and struggles. How are we going what are we going to do with it? What are the things that we can try? And what are the things that we can avoid if that's actually, for example, triggering some sensory processing concerns? What can we do? Stuff like that. One is open communication, second is patience. Like I said, each person has different nuances, and I think we should be open to understand that certain nuances doesn't apply to all. It's not one size fits all in terms of condition. So we need to be open that probably there are things that needs to be catered specifically more on an individualized perspective rather than one size fits all kind of approach.
Thank you. That was like a very interesting point. Like you talked about, it's more how men were diagnosed, and it's more harder to be diagnose it in females, and it's more subtle because it's like culturally wise, maybe in Asian culture, it's more likely, oh, Asians are more shy or more introverted, and it is difficult to diagnose it, and I think like how you said it works both ways. So I think from a student's perspective, they don't even know why they're struggling. So it's for them, it's
Mhm.
hard. So that's when our educators, parents, our job is to notice those small patterns at a very, very early age, early as possible, so we can
Correct.
give them the right tools. Uh, it depends, like, how do we connect with them? How
Mhm.
can educators become more aware? So I have few, like you said, use sensory friendly visual aids. So not just use lecture mode in class all the time, use more a lot of sensory visual aids and have individualized different teaching methods. So try one technique today. It doesn't work. Maybe try a different one another day. And if that doesn't work, try another one and just keep trying. I think no teacher is perfect, no parent is perfect, but at least we're trying different techniques today, tomorrow. That's how I do it. And until I get to figure out what the student is actually struggling with. Because if I give them a game today and I see, aha, he likes this game. So this is a game based on this certain sensory. So he must be more of like a visual learner, or he is more of like an audio learner, right? So you get to I think experimenting, like you said, individualized teaching styles and materials are very helpful. And another thing I really learned was to text to speech. So we don't want to like always give them reading, right?
Mm.
You need some sort of audio to come along with it. So that's what I learned throughout this whole month. And speaking from a colleague or like an adult, I know our webinar is a little bit messy. Sorry for my audience. So it's like if this person is an adult and is a colleague, now managers, what they can do is be very clear. So one thing I learned that they may not take jokes as lightly as someone else might. They might take it in a
It can be
literal.
literal. It can be literal.
Yeah. It can be very literal. So I think for anyone with colleagues, if you notice someone who doesn't get your joke, don't say it the second time. I think that's my advice. And if you notice someone who doesn't like a joke, maybe explain to them what you exactly mean. So, or if they don't like your humor and joke, maybe just not do it again. I guess one technique for managers and colleagues is to be very clear, like very clear. You don't want to be too metaphorical, too passive, too instead of saying, "Oh, I like your shirt." No, just like I like your shirt because I like the design. You want to be more straightforward. This is what I learned. And also learn use many ways of communication. Use many ways. So maybe if this person doesn't like one way of emailing, maybe try calling. If he doesn't like calling, maybe try talking in person. If he doesn't like talking in person, maybe try group discussion. If they don't like group discussion, maybe I know this might seem complicated. Some of y'all might say, "Oh my God, why is there so much work? Why are you trying to treat them like a VIP customer? Or like, why are you trying to put them on a pedestal?" No, it's not putting anyone on a pedestal. It's just making sure we use many different types of communications. Maybe try group
I've
discussions,
actually
one-on-one, email, calling, LinkedIn. Try many different types of, maybe have a movie night. And so this is going to be helpful if we can diversify our communication style. This is going to be helpful with anyone, not just with someone with autism. This is going to help with discussing with anyone. So back to you, Kay. What are your thoughts on what I just mentioned?
Those are really amazing, especially, oh, are we going to give this person a special treatment because she's autistic or he's autistic? Now, I'm just going to give our viewers like some quick background. Why am I speaking on behalf of autistic? I'm not speaking on behalf of autistic. I'm actually a person who is actually a compensating dyslexic. And apparently, when I was actually in the journey of trying to understand my condition, I realized that, oh, hang on. Now it makes sense that whenever I speak, people will say, no. You're not dyslexic, you're autistic. And I'm like, no, but I have proper diagnosis that I have. Well, basically, it's because autism and dyslexia shares similar signs, commonalities in terms of signs. But here's the caveat. The experience is different. So it's totally different in terms of the way things are working in the background versus the challenge itself. So the challenge possibly it can be same, but what's going on behind the thinking of an individual who has dyslexia or has autism, it may be different. So yeah, there are a couple of things that we can discuss. For example, one of the things that I really like what you mentioned is the social interaction. So that's one thing in common that a compensating dyslexic and an autistic person can. So let me share the point of view of someone with autism. So, okay. Can you still hear me?
Begin.
Okay, so I really appreciate that you mentioned about the social situation and how people could actually create a more inclusive environment. So let me share to you one common signs between a compensating dyslexic and an autistic person, which is their challenge with social interactions. So for autistic person, based on my research and understanding, because I'm trying to actually differentiate it, I reckon there was this manager of mine, a colleague of mine, saying that my symptom is more of autistic, the way they see it, but I'm not dyslexic. But apparently, it's actually same in terms of symptoms. The experience is different. So let me highlight the difference. So for example, for autistic person, socially they have challenge in terms of like communicating to others. So this is the reason why, in terms of therapy, when they undergo therapy sessions, proper they were being guided, they have social scripts that they will actually rehearse so that they could actually talk to a person and be more improve their social skills in essence. It's because it's quite challenging for them in terms of understanding social dynamics or social norms, the way we actually know it from neurotypical. So their understanding of social dynamics is more of intellectual because it's scripted. Like, okay, you need to ask, how are they? So, what are they doing? What are their interests? So that they could have something in common to share, and then it loosens up the pressure and the anxiety of having or being in a social situation. So that is for the perspective of an autistic person. They learn social dynamics through intellect and explicit social rules that are being told to them or being discussed with them. Something that they observe based on their pattern recognition ability. For dyslexic person, they may come appear as socially awkward, especially if there are situations that may challenge their intellect or literacy. For example, reading or writing. Suddenly they'll be asked to read or write, and that could be very um, petrifying for someone with dyslexia because they will be thinking, oh, am I going to do it perfectly? Am I going to, like, what am I going to do? But once that one is eased out, the social anxiety decrease and they'll be able to actually navigate the social situation. So that is the difference in terms of that one for social interaction. And that's really important so that we could understand, okay, for the first one, how are we going to support them? So basically, it's more of like guiding them, especially if it's unscripted. Like, how are we going to support someone with such condition of intellectually understanding the situation? Probably if there is a buddy system, like say, oh, okay, this is what he meant, or translate some stuff, or have a probably a different conversation that will veer towards the person's deep interest, that could actually work. For people with dyslexic, probably because dyslexics are socially intuitive. So when there are, like, for example, situation that, oh, okay, I feel that it's quite being heavy. I think I need to back a little bit in terms of dipping into that topic and try to actually shift it to other areas that the person might be interested in. So that I think could make a relationship better, work better for both dyslexic and non-dyslexic, regardless in a school setup or, for example, an office setup.
Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of people hopefully can find that extremely helpful because I personally did. And we want to make sure if we see someone struggling to connect with you in a social setting, just make them feel safe. Like, oh, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. There's nothing to be worried about. Or maybe you can, start break the ice. If I see one of my students, especially if it's like a new student coming into class, and he is like
Yes.
nervous, just with like a very, very small talk. I would be like, oh, it's fine. Like, oh, how are you? And if they give you only one word answer, just ask the next question and just keep asking, and fill in the gaps, like um, the awkward gaps and silences. I think that's where like educators and managers and parents can fill in those awkward gaps for kind of our job, so everyone else doesn't freak out, because teenagers can be brutal. They can be very brutal towards
Yeah.
other
Oh,
teenagers if they
I'd
see
love,
if they
I'd
see
love to hear more. I'd love to hear more, like your experience as a teacher
the
dealing with
teacher. Okay, so
students and
I personally can kind of tell. Like, I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I've never done a proper diagnose on anyone. But after reading like common symptoms of people who struggle with autism, like you said, social interactions, they struggle with small talk. Just like saying hi, what did you eat for breakfast? Or like, what's your favorite movie? Anything that I ask that's for us is like normal, like, oh, my favorite movie is this, right? But from my experience, I've noticed some students who struggle with autism or dyslexia avoid personal conversations. Am I right?
yes,
Like,
that's true. That's true.
avoid anything that's personal. They'll just freeze. But if it's a topic about like something else, like let's say about the recent movie, what do you think about the Donald Trump tariff and and they'll speak. But when it comes to personal topic, like, now what do you think? It's like what are those sounds like? It's like it's like a very awkward silence, and then that's when I come in and I'll be like, "Oh, it's fine. Take your time. And whenever you're ready, just add your information. If you don't have any opinion, it's also fine." So that's where it's important for educators to create a safe environment. If you see that's a topic that for them is very, very, very a struggle, I personally wouldn't force them too much. But maybe after class, I will pull them apart and I'll be like, okay, so, I would love you to open up a little bit, just because we want to make sure everybody is equal. Because if I treat someone else, oh, like it's okay for you to not share a personal story, but someone else, you need to share a personal story. So that creates an imbalance in the classroom. So I might like try to explain, like, it's not because I'm trying to make you feel uncomfortable. It's not because I'm trying to interrogate you. It's important for us to be a little bit vulnerable. And if it's still a struggle after two or three times, and I personally don't really force them, force them to go out and social interactions like movie nights. They're not gonna come. If it's board game night, they're not gonna come. And after a while, kind of everybody kind of knows. Everybody that kind of knows, okay, she's probably not gonna come. He's probably not gonna come. And there's not really much what we can do. And that's where we need therapists. That's where we need psychologists to, because we are not for all the neurodivergent students. So our job is to
Yeah.
basically deliver content. Our job is to make reach high scores. So that's where, like, I usually tell the parents or the manager or our head teacher about, okay, maybe she probably needs like one-on-one sessions with the psychologist, and I tell them this is not a bad thing. Going to the psychologist room is not going to detention. You need to understand that this, like, I try to explain to some of the students, like, when we are little, we never had psychologists at school. So now that you guys are really lucky to have a helper at school, we want to call them helpers, because there was a stigma at one of the schools that I used to teach. And they thought that going to psychologist's room was a punishment. Like
That is true.
because
Because
they
they'll be
didn't want to look at
exposed.
all of the others, but we're like, no, even teachers can go in. So after a while, at school, it became a normal thing. Even parents started taking students in and discuss about their stress. There will be like a whole book for stress management, self-reflective thoughts. So that's like a whole, that's what the therapist is good at. I'm not me. Me-
That is so true. If I'm just gonna add something about it, for autistic, because when I actually I did a session because there are tools nowadays. I'm really excited about this. That assess for my diagnosis, proper diagnosis assessment. I submitted to them and then create this program for um, it's like an emotional support, like how are we gonna support you if you're a kid, if you're an adult. And one of the things that fascinates me is because I'm compensating, there are things that I built that has basically similarities with autism. So they told me, yes, you're dyslexic, you're compensating dyslexic, but there are things that you might have some commonalities with autistic people. One of the things that really fascinates me, especially when talking with people, adults with autism, even kids, is that they are very passionate into tunnel focus into something. And when you actually talk about that topic, they can go beyond imagination. Like, for example, this is very I've noticed it with men. I haven't noticed it with women. But what I notice with men is when you talk about, for example, topics like, oh, how Star Wars? Oh, you know what? I've read books, blah, blah, to this book. And they were like, and it is really in depth, like really profound information about it. They know it. Like at the back of their head. Oh, yeah, this is what it is. It's like they have a certain obsession towards something and drawn to it, and they can talk forever. But veer it a little on the side, which is, so how do you feel today? It's like you're disconnected. It's
Yep.
like it's like a plug. Like, and you're very right. It's like a plug. You pulled it, and they're just staring at you,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know what to say basically. And this happened to me too. Sometimes I'm like, I understand you, but I don't know how to answer your question. And this is where you're right, the therapy session comes in. Like, if you're asked that way, what are you going to do? Because sometimes, especially in certain situations that I had before, there was a quick judgment of, oh, maybe she's antisocial. She doesn't want to talk to us. She doesn't want to talk to us. She thinks highly of herself, considering that she's profound knowledge on this area and stuff like that. And that's really terrible because rather than creating a safe space for everyone, there's a huge misconception that is not necessarily related to neurodivergent condition, which is what we're talking about at the moment. And I think this is the reason, and this is really perfect. This month is really perfect for us to reflect on certain situations that we might be unintentionally rude to someone, without realizing, probably they have certain condition that I don't get at the moment, but perhaps I will moving forward. I reckon I had a conversation with an office mate, and she said some idioms to me. And she was like, don't take it too literal, okay? And at the back of my head, don't take it too literal. So what does that even mean? And I needed to pause for a second because I don't understand English, but there are certain conversations that can be challenging, especially if you don't have like emotional regulation toolkit, which is very important if for I believe it is very important because one of the challenges of neurodivergent people is the executive functioning area, which which is linked to your inhibition control, which means that you have certain outbursts of emotions in situations that you cannot comprehend quite instantly. Like rather than jumping into this outburst, we need to have this toolkit on our side or exercises that works for the person so that they could navigate the situation because we don't want to have a person who understands it and the other one will comply with it. It's not the kind of dynamics that I think we should build, but I think it should be like a cooperation between people because it's a relationship that okay, when those things happen, I'll take something from my toolkit, I'll practice it, calm myself, and then deal with the situation once I have a better and clearer mind.
Thank you, thank you. This was a wonderful, wonderful discussion. Speaking of programs, there are a lot of programs out there that you can reach out to. If you ever feel like you're lonely, you can also message us, join our online community, and I have a whole list of different websites on my Facebook page. Remember to follow our Facebook page, and if you need someone, if you need an organization to reach out to, I have a whole list of different organizations that you can be a part of, or you can like be a part of a community. And if none of them are close to you, you can create your own online community or even join our BYKE community. We're always open to anyone anything that's related to education and positive disciplining. We're always looking out for new speakers and new audiences. And thank you, Kay, again. Has been a wonderful, wonderful session. And as we wrap up, um, I want to tell all of you post these once a month. So please feel free to message us if you want to become a speaker, follow our YouTube page, and see you all of in our next session. Goodbye, everyone.